2, 3, go. Welcome to Daring to Suck. I'm your host, Grace Askew, a veteran musician, songwriter, recording artist, and road dog who has been living and breathing my craft for over 15 years. Each episode will dive deep into what it truly looks like to be a working artist, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Come roll along with me, tumbleweeds. All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Daring to Suck. And here in season 1, we are exploring the artist's journey. It's the backstory of veteran working artists, total pros who have been living and breathing their craft for many years. And that totally applies to my next guest, Miss Olivia Rudeen. Olivia is an accomplished touring songwriter, having gotten a cut on the Grammy-nominated Ashley McBryde album with her song The Jacket, as well as many TV placements on such networks as CMT, NBC, and ABC. And I have had the great fortune and honor to write with Olivia twice now. And just from those 2 virtual co-writes, I can tell y'all she is the absolute real deal. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for asking me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, ever since kind of getting to know your personality through just 2 co-writes, I'm like itching to hear your backstory. I'm just so curious to how you've gotten to be such this natural artist in your songwriting voice. So I'm really, interested to hear where this takes us. So I found out that you were from Denver in my digging around, and not that I had to dig that deep. There are many websites about you, but and it says that you got your first pub deal in 2013. But I want to know what happened leading up to 2013. How did your songwriting chops get formed, and how did you get comfortable with songwriting in the first place? And what was your childhood like, so to speak?
That's either a very long answer or a very short answer, I guess. But I guess I was always kind of musical. My mom's side of the family was pretty musical. Her mom, my grandma, was in a singing trio, sort of like a Andrews Sisters.
No way. I love the Andrews Sisters. That's awesome.
Yeah, and they toured. They were called the Musettes.
I love it.
And they toured with a big band, and it was one of those things, though, where that was kind of like not what good girls did.
Really? Okay.
So she kind of reached a point where it was like, well, you can go start a family or do this. And she went and started a family.
Wow.
So that was always in my mind, not as like a young child, but I've often thought about the what could have beens for her.
Yeah.
And then my mom, played guitar. She had a little folky duo thing she did in high school. And
cool.
Her guitar was laying around the house, and that kind of piqued my interest. And I always was.
Did she play it very much when you were a kid? Did you see her engaging with her, music much?
Yeah, my mom never played it.
That's
I've still to this day never seen her play that guitar.
Wow.
It's there. It was like a Yamaha classical nylon string guitar just in her closet. And so that piqued my interest, and I always was just kind of making up songs. There's a 8mm videotape of me at 5. I had this plastic Daffy Duck saxophone and I would play it, and I had for whatever reason, I don't know where I heard the blues. So I would sing this. I'd go, I have a little bunny, toot toot, name is Bunny Joe, toot toot. And who knows where I got that?
TV, maybe. I don't know. That's funny.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Honestly, I've never connected it, but you remember that whole Ernie on Sesame Street?
Mm-hmm.
Put down your rubber ducky if you want to play the saxophone.
Yeah.
That could have been my earliest influence.
Heyday of Sesame Street. Yeah, totally.
So I was always making stuff up like that, and when I was going into middle school, which is, I guess, age 11 in Denver, they have an art school. It's a middle school, high school, and you have to audition to get in. You have to pick a major, which feels like a heavy choice for an 11-year-old.
Seriously.
And I auditioned for, submitted my portfolio for the creative writing program, and
Nice.
I got in.
And
And
what initiated that in the first place to like, you just knew you were interested in that more than anything else?
I guess I'd written a little bit just for school, and both my parents are writers. My dad's a lifelong journalist,
Oh, wow.
a little
Nice.
bit on a different side of the spectrum.
Very
And
cool.
she did a little bit of that. I think that's how they met, at a newspaper. And she also is a poet. She writes poetry all the time. And
Nice.
so I was always around writing, I guess even more so than music. Um, so it seemed like part of it was just it seemed like a good school to go to. So there were all
Mhm.
these people like, whatever you think you can do to get in, do it.
Yeah.
I ended up getting in, and that was such a gift because every single day, Monday through Friday, we got to write for an hour and a half. We were in that class, whatever our major was.
Gotcha.
So I was given so many hours of time just to
To
be
focus.
creative, and with a really wonderful teacher that was really encouraging, and a really talented writer herself. And I started writing songs in that class. I guess had been playing guitar for a little bit. I started playing guitar, taking lessons when I was 9.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was the same year I got my braces on and I started
It's a
taking
big game
guitar.
change. Yeah.
Big year. And that was, precipitated by my mom having that guitar. There was also, we had these family friends actually in New Mexico, in Santa Fe.
Cool.
Go down there once a year and hang out with them. And they had this teenage son who I thought was the coolest person ever. He had like purple hair, and he
Or
played in a rock
alternative.
band. Yeah. And he played electric guitar, and that was something
Oh,
I've never seen.
yeah.
So I think it was on a trip to Santa Fe that I was like, hey, do you think I could take lessons and actually like learn how to play that thing that's sitting in your closet?
Yeah.
And it's funny now because that cool teenager, he's like a cop now.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you, like, is he doing music? That's
No,
so funny.
that yeah, he's doing really well, but he's not doing music, and he'd probably think it was kind of funny to be
Yeah.
credited as an inspiration. But um, yeah, so I'd been playing guitar, and then being in those writing classes was the first time I kind of combined that musicality with writing.
Gotcha.
And I think the first song I wrote, I called it the pizza song. The word
Did
pizza is
it?
not in it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I thought it was cool or like
Creative license, man.
there literally wasn't. There was one line, uh, leftovers never taste the same. A rose don't smell as sweet by any other name.
Mm.
So maybe the leftovers, like
Yeah, there you go.
I
Yeah.
don't know where that connection was. But I
Love it.
wrote that song, and I mean, I had a lot of fun doing it, and I honestly can't even remember specifically the first moment of writing. But I guess it just came kind of
It felt
naturally.
natural. Yeah. It's so funny. People ask that same thing to me, and I never can think of like this pivotal moment in time where I was like, I want to do songwriting. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I want to be a songwriter. But so that for you, I mean, I have that kind of as one of your questions. But when did you know, like, all right, I want to actually pursue it and try to get a publishing deal? And like, how did the even thought of getting a publishing deal become part of, the conversation? Like, did your parents think that was like the smart way to pursue your music career?
Hmm. My parents still don't fully understand what a publishing deal even is.
I definitely don't yet.
Yeah, most days I'm not sure I do. They were very encouraging though. I mean, they've always been. But yeah, I guess so. I started writing those songs. I started a band.
Cool.
My friend was having her bat mitzvah, so she needed a band for the party.
Nice.
I was like, all right, they were gonna pay us $200.
Nice.
So I formed a band for that. I kind of I found another guitar player that my guitar teacher was working with.
Okay.
Had one of my best friends was a drummer, and then one of my other best friends, I forced him to be the bass player. And he's still doing music and
Nice.
still playing bass, and I don't know whether I should like apologize for that or not. But so
Yeah.
I had this band all through high school. We were called The Panic.
Panic.
Yeah.
Love
And
it.
I did that, and I kind of managed the band just because
Was it a lot of your original songs, or were y'all doing mostly covers?
a lot of originals and then a lot of covers for like parties. We
Okay.
played a lot of like pop punk, like Blink 182, which my
Yeah.
voice does not lend itself to. But
Are there recordings of this? That's the real question.
I'm not sure. On MySpace, if we dig into it.
I love it.
So I'd been doing that, but like even kind of managing that band and seeing that you could make some money, and it kind of hadn't coalesced in my mind that this was like a career I wanted. And a lot of times it was, even as I was inching towards that, I would say that the phrase would be, I'm trying to be a musician or trying to be a songwriter.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a moment where you'd say, I am.
Yeah.
And
What made you get more comfortable with saying that, you think?
I think it was, I went away to college. I wasn't doing music. I just spent a semester actually in Tacoma, Washington at the
Cool.
University of Puget Sound. And it was beautiful up there, but I wasn't doing music. It was sort of a don't put all your eggs in one basket type thing, which
Interesting.
I'd kind of forced that on myself. Nobody else had.
Really?
And I missed it. I just missed
Yeah.
playing with my band and writing songs. And so I ended up returning to Denver.
Were you studying music while you were in Washington?
I was
At
just
all?
getting I was getting general, like, liberal
Gotcha.
arts.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be easier to get to Seattle, too. I had this romanticized thing of, like, yeah, the Seattle music scene. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be in it. And it's like, no, you don't have a car in Tacoma. You're not doing that.
Yeah.
So I ended up finding this program at the University of Colorado in Denver. They had a music business, like modern music program
Yeah.
that was really cool. And even having grown up there, I didn't know much about it. And I wished I had. And I have to say the top selling point they used, they'd be like, Isaac from the Fray went here.
Oh.
That was their recruiting
Oh.
technique. It worked for me. I was a fan of the Fray.
Yeah, yeah. Back in
Um,
the day.
Yeah. So I went there and graduated with a degree in music business, and throughout that time was just learning a lot and networking and really learning that you could make a career out of it.
Yeah.
I met one of the most important people, I think, in my musical development or like professional development was this woman, Tiffany Vartanian, she's a pop and country songwriter.
Okay.
She was living in Denver at the time and knew one of my professors, and she was living in Denver but making trips monthly to Nashville.
Gotcha.
And I think somehow we just connected. She came to class or something to speak and talked about writing for other artists and the whole idea of the publishing deal and how things work in Nashville and LA. And that super piqued my interest because I'm a creative person, but I'm also I'm kind of OCD and kind of like an organizational freak in some ways.
Yeah.
And so to have someone lay out a little more linear
Yeah.
like it's totally the Wild West in the music industry anyway.
Totally. Yeah.
But there still is a little bit, at least in the Nashville machine, a little more of the point A to point B. Like,
That's interesting, the way to put it. I've never heard anyone say it like that before. I mean, but it makes sense that it is a way more linear path to go towards a publishing deal for sure.
yeah, it just felt like I could just grasp it a little better. Like, okay, I write a bunch of songs. I try to write with people that are better than me. She always told me, like try to be the worst writer in the room.
Yeah.
And and then, songs go to publisher takes them to A&R or a music supervisor or something, and then they like it, they record it. And we all know there's a lot of stars have to align for it to actually work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did seem more linear than just kind of like
Being an artist to
yes.
you. Did you ever have interest in that, or did it always appeal to you more to be kind of behind the scenes?
I have always had interest in being the artist and performing, and I still do.
I love your voice. I mean, I've been listening to your music all morning. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I think those aspirations change. I think as you get older too, sometimes your dreams, like the scope of your dreams, change a little bit. And
well, in the 90s, like I don't know what year you were born. What year were you born?
91.
Okay, so you're younger than me. So, but yeah, like still, you understand like that heyday of like pop stars were the thing, and so that's what I saw as like the beacon of ultimate success. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's what you kind of saw, but
I think I saw there were a few different influences on me in that way. For whatever reason, maybe just my age or whatever. Taylor Swift was just her career and just her being able to do what she did was kind of inspiring. And I mean, now you see, like you can see the puppet strings a little more when you're you're like, okay, there was money involved and there was
a lot of money,
a lot of money. But I think I kind of was like, that was actually a moment I remember being away at college before I decided to come back, watching her accept an award on CMAs or something, and or thanking her mom, and me kind of just being like, okay, she's obviously very talented and a very smart business person and
right,
a great team around her, but she's also just a girl around my age who writes songs and performs them. And I kind of had this moment of like, well, why I could do that.
Yeah.
Hey, I hope y'all are enjoying the episode so far. Really quick before we continue, I see these episodes as a form of priceless mentorship, and that's something I always wished I had in my own journey. If you also feel you are getting something of value from these conversations from veteran working artists, there is a way to support the show and keep it going. For just $3 a month, you can become a personal patron to the podcast by joining over at patreon.com/Grace Askew. Or if you'd like to be a one-time supporter, you can name your price and throw in what you'd like to the virtual tip jar at paypal.me/Grace Askew. Either way, your listenership means so much to me. All right, let's get back to the show.
That's a simplistic way to think about it. It gave me some.
But it was something relatable, it sounds like, for you. Yeah, like I had never found anything relatable until I was like in high school either. Cat Power was like the first artist I heard that was like, oh wow, so I don't have to sound like the pop stars. I can sound like me and still be really, and be successful, because I grew up in the suburbs country of Memphis. So it's just like, but anyway, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I think too, like scope wise of being the performer, the artist, the star, there also in the 90s was that heyday too of like Lilith Fair and
yes, Jewel and like
yes, totally Sheryl Crow. I mean, Sheryl Crow is one of my all-time favorites.
Totally.
And seeing like at that time there was the potential for massive worldwide success. Like a singer-songwriter.
Totally. Yeah.
And it still is, but I think like what's like at the top of the pile can kind of shift. And I find myself like it's not a healthy way or a productive way to think, but like, man, if I had just been born in like 1978 or something.
Seriously? Like, I know.
Right age to be playing Lilith Fair and doing that. And
I know I forgot about all of that, honestly. Like, that's a good point. I mean, there was more of a market for
like mega stardom as a songwriter back then, for sure. For
Yeah,
women, especially.
yeah. So that all I definitely would, kind of lie awake at night and envision myself on a huge stage and
Yeah,
envision this big success. And but I think when I delved into writing for other people, it satisfied a couple things. I mean, you're able to you're able to explore so many more stories than just your own,
totally.
which is really satisfying to me creatively. And I think that helps with not getting burned out as easily, or writer's block or anything like
Taking a
that.
bit of fiction under your belt.
Totally. And it takes some pressure away from
Mm-hmm.
whatever whatever I do end up doing as an artist. And
What is your creative process like now, would you say? How would you describe it?
mm,
I mean, are you doing co-writes pretty much a handful of times a week, or
yeah, usually probably, I guess, like three to four a week at this point. And I'm
not?
between publishing deals at the moment, so usually when I'm signed, I kind of crack the whip on myself more than I think my publisher does.
Really?
So I think I'll overwrite a little bit, um, and make sure all 5 days a week be writing with somebody. But I've been
Nice.
trying to leave more space to write by myself and be inspired that way, because they are really different animals.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your first impression of Nashville that you can remember when you first moved there full time?
Well, I like to tell people that before I moved here, we drove through Nashville as a family on a road trip in our Plymouth Voyager magazine.
Nice.
We got sideswiped by a big semi
Oh
here.
God, great first impression.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe I should have known. I think, well, I thought it was amazing the first trip I made out here. I came with a friend who I wrote with, and I was like 19, I think, and he was like a male friend that was like, he's like 12 years older than me, and we went together. I mean, we don't have never had any romantic relationship, but my
Yeah.
parents were like, okay, like, have fun with Jeff. See you later.
Nice.
Um, but I was just amazed by it. It felt like Disneyland or something. Just that it was this community of all these people doing what I wanted to do
Hmm.
and succeeding at, making a living and
Yeah.
making, great, not all great art, but some.
Yeah. So it's so subjective. So it's, yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, I
Um,
thought it was amazing. And when I first moved here, I was lucky enough to have a publishing deal when I first moved here. I had met that publisher at this thing called the Durango Songwriters Expo,
okay.
which I highly recommend. I think a lot of those expos and conferences can be kind of scammy, or like
Just, yeah, want your money.
they're taking people's money, and like, it's not really that helpful. But
Mhm.
that one in particular, I think, is really helpful. And I met a lot of people there, including, my first publisher. And so we already were talking like deal points before I moved.
It's so funny. Most people don't get that experience at all. Like they struggle for years getting a publishing deal, but you rolled into town with one. So that must have felt really nice.
It felt really good, and it also felt a little bit. There was a little bit of like an imposter syndrome,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, because yeah, like there's people who will wait tables for 20 years and never get signed, and never, like, there's more talented people than me in every coffee shop in this town. Like, I'm well aware of that. And we both know, yeah, being signed or whatever isn't necessarily a
And I'll be all. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but it did give me a lot of momentum, and it gave me the chance to just focus on being creative. And I just remember in those first few years here, just, yeah, being so excited and just feeling like really the sky was the limit as far as what I could accomplish and who I could work with. And I attribute part of that to my publisher. Her name's Jennifer Johnson, and she's just a like consummate cheerleader.
Nice. That's so important.
Yeah, and it really was. And even though, I didn't, get a huge cut while I was there, or, I didn't do all these things that we were striving for, she believed I could do. Just believing it could happen.
Yeah.
Super powerful. So
very powerful.
I was just writing all the time. And I would spend so much time, like, I'd go into the office and be there for like 6-7 hours working with people or by myself. And
nice.
Yeah, had a lot of creative momentum at that time.
And when did your road life kind of enter the picture? Because I've read that you toured as a guitarist, right? For what's her name? It was the Willie Nelson tour. Y'all were opening up for Willie Nelson. You were her guitarist. Tell me about that.
That was for Alyssa Michaela.
Okay.
She's a good friend, and I guess we've known each other for a few years now, and we write together. And I'm like a proficient acoustic guitar player. Like, I do it for myself. But I think she liked the way I sang background vocals.
Okay, cool. But yeah, that's so hard to find as a female guitarist and harmonizer. That's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I think she liked having like a girl on the road as well.
It's such a different vibe for sure.
Yeah, I think it just helps because, yeah, it's her and a bunch of guys. And
yes.
That was something that had just started picking up last year. So we got to do some shows opening for Willie in Louisiana and Texas.
Nice.
That was insane. I still have this bandana that he took off his head and handed to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm washing this.
Never wash it. Never.
Maybe one day cloning technology will be good enough. I can
there you go.
Suck some sweat out of this bandana.
But you've toured also like as under your name, right? As a songwriter. And have you enjoyed it, or has it been kind of a struggle for you?
I guess.
I mean, it's probably both for everybody, but
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think you're definitely a road dog more than I will ever be. But I started touring, I guess, I think maybe like 19 or 20. Me and a couple friends just set up these random shows at like just
corners.
Wherever we could play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we started in Denver, and we kind of did this loop. We went up to like Wyoming, over through Nevada, down through California, Arizona, New Mexico.
What cool places to drive through, though.
Yes, it was beautiful, and it was so fun. I mean, we definitely were not profitable, and we had this whole plan that we were gonna save money and like camp because it was the summer. So
nice.
We'll stay at like KOAs, and that lasted one night, and it was cold. It was like a weirdly cold night, and then one of the guys I was with ended up calling his parents, and they booked us a few motel rooms along the way.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah, we lucked out. So that was the start of it, and then since then, yeah, it's been just stuff I've booked myself and with friends. I've just hopped on their tours, and none of it's been too glamorous or not big crowds or anything. It's a lot of like, I've played a lot of breweries, played a lot of wineries, bars. Kind of random stuff, and a friend and I set up a 10 days in Europe like 2 years ago. And again, that was a complete shot in the dark because with like language barrier and no idea. But touring has given me just some of the most amazing experiences of my life, and it's kind of helped. It's helped keep Nashville fresh for me too.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to step away from it.
Yeah.
So definitely during this year with COVID, I mean, this is just a weird year for so many.
Weird year. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been a bummer to not do that. But it also does after a time, like as you know, just traveling so much, you get tired of it and you
Yeah.
start kind of losing your center of gravity a
Playing
little
the
bit.
same songs every night can definitely wear on you for sure.
Yeah, you get a little tired of it. And I think, I mean, it truly is the best way to like fully realize the music because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you see it land and you know feel it in your vocal cords
Yeah.
100 times.
Evolves through the weeks of a tour for sure. It changes.
100%. So I think it's like it's crucial, but it does get harder too as you get older and as you like. I don't know. I definitely find myself not as excited to drive 5 hours to make a couple $100.
Yeah, it has to be way more strategic for me too. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's
and I think it's strategic from a financial standpoint and strategic from just keeping it
PR. Like,
motivated.
yeah,
Yeah, I found that was one thing like it seemed at a certain point it seemed beneficial to me like from a PR standpoint to just seem busy.
right,
So people would be like, "Oh, you got stuff going on." And
right.
then you start thinking like, no, you'd rather be like the right kind of busy,
Mm.
getting smarter about it.
And what does the right kind of busy look like for you nowadays? Is that writing, just staying busy with writing?
I think ideally, like without the asterisk of pandemic,
Yeah,
it would be. I think it'd be pretty heavily weighted towards writing and writing for other people. I think there would be some time carved out more than I allow myself for my own stuff, and I have a 6 song EP that's done and just sitting on my hard drive.
oh, can't wait to hear it though.
I think I'm really excited for people to hear it. It's we've been done with it for almost a year, and I I just get that sort of like that paralysis of you get the ball to like the 1 yard line and you're about to get in the end zone and
Yeah.
you don't want to fumble it. You don't want to
Hmm.
do a disservice to these songs and these recordings that you spent so much time on and
Yeah.
and you have all these voices telling you, well, you know, this about branding, this about marketing, this about
Yes, that's the most stressful part for sure. Is this strategery, so to speak, of dropping an album is so stressful to me too. So I get that.
yeah, I would love for someone to do it for me, but
Yeah.
yeah, the the music industry we're in, I mean, it's you're always going to be your own best
Hmm.
champion. And
I do feel blessed to like have social media and have this like powerful tool to cut out the middleman basically and directly connect to our audiences. I mean, that's just such a gift. We can kind of take the reins now basically. And I'm curious to hear what keeps you going as an artist in such there is a lot of noise out there because everyone's voice can be heard now. Like what keeps you motivated to just keep writing and keep pushing?
I think a lot of it is just it's like a do or die. If you, I think as an artist, if you're stagnant for too long, that can really affect. I know me emotionally.
Hmm.
I can definitely get into these doldrums of just being sad and
Yeah, I hear
you
you.
know, it's that sense of purpose, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of keeps me and will always keep me going. And I think weirdly enough, I found almost more clarity about that during this time because there aren't those like stamps of approval. There isn't as much validation. There isn't a crowd
Absolutely.
applauding for you, and
So true.
but just that inherently and like intrinsically, this is what I want to do and am moved to do.
Yeah.
But I think other than that, I'm really inspired by other artists and other songwriters. That's always something that will kind of lift me out of a spell of not being inspired. And that was why, working with you in Park was such a gift for me during quarantine and everything, because the fact that we were able to connect and write such cool stuff together, and that it was so easy, and it was something I was always excited to get up and do, and that something tangible is going to come out of it.
Right. No, I cannot wait to just, here's a shameless plug, because Olivia brought to the table this idea for one of the songs that's on my album. It's called Adobe Red. And I was just floored by it. I was just blown away. And I was like, yeah, we need to finish this. And so I don't think it's the next single, but it will. Everything drops this coming February 2021. But you were just such a professional, and it was just totally fluid to write with you. And that obviously shows, because you've done so many co-writes for so many years. What would you say to budding songwriters who are intimidated by the co-writing process? What would your advice be to them to kind of ease them a little bit?
Yeah, it's important to get that advice. First of all, thank you for those kind words.
Yeah.
It also, it isn't always that easy. Like, I guess I wasn't as aware. Like, I'd listened to a good bit of your music before we wrote, but I didn't realize, like, you didn't need me or Park to be there. Like, you're a badass all by yourself.
It's so refreshing to write with y'all. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's like the cool thing, is finding, if you can find other people that you're inspired by, and like the stuff they do on their own, you're just excited about, and you just want to be the one throwing, firecrackers into that fire. But when you're just getting started, it's a lot like going on a bunch of blind dates. It's awkward, and you don't know someone. You might be best friends with somebody, and you cannot write a single lyric with them.
Interesting. You've had that happen?
Oh yeah, I have plenty of friends that are also writers that we don't write that often, and sometimes it's more a choice of like compartmentalizing. If your whole life is about music, and
that makes sense.
Talk about with your friends, and that's
totally.
But yeah, when you're just starting, if you can find somebody you're comfortable with, and try to find someone who is maybe a little farther along than you are career-wise, to just try to learn from them.
Yeah.
And I think, it really is kind of a muscle you have to exercise to be comfortable enough to be vulnerable and open.
Yeah.
And other people the way you would when you're by yourself.
So true.
Really, it's just doing it as much as you can, which I think is harder, depending where you are geographically. Right. To connect with those people. Yeah. Now with COVID, like, there's, a lot of people are getting more comfortable with Zoom.
I felt so comfortable writing our songs over Zoom. Like, it just seemed fluid, but I think maybe all three of us are just kind of lucking out. We jive, but I'm sure, I've done some over Zoom that weren't so great, but I think you really hit hard. You hit something that is so important, that you study the person that you're about to write with a little bit, and see if you even kind of can appreciate their style in the first place. Because if you don't kind of have some sort of appreciation for where they're coming from, then maybe it's going to be a little bit harder of a process, I would think.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And those lines get blurred a little bit when, it's your job and someone to up and write, and they want you to write a smash. Yeah. My favorite word. Sometimes you do have to stretch a little bit outside of your comfort zone, and use a little more of the the skill side of songwriting rather than like the heart
Yeah.
of songwriting. But I think the best combinations, and when people find success with their peer group, it is when everybody's just feeding off each other's energy and excited about each other. So I really have seen that pan out over now, I guess 7 years here, and probably, I don't know, I've probably written, God, I don't know, 1,000 songs, like a lot of songs.
Yeah.
A lot of songs that, probably will just sit in the graveyard of a publisher's hard drive.
Right. Yeah.
But
Jill Leathers, I interviewed him for the second, or was it the third? It was the third episode.
Yeah.
And he talks about, he's written with Guy Clark and stuff, but he talks about giving advice to a kid who wants to become a songwriter. And he's like, yeah, I've got these 20 songs and I think I'm ready to like make it. And he's like, man, you got to write like 500 songs before you're ready to make it, and you obviously understand that like mentality of you write a lot of songs to become a better writer, especially you got to write a lot of shitty songs in the beginning to become a better writer and be okay with that shittiness. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing, daring to suck. It's such an appropriate title for the podcast, because I remember there was an interview with Dave Grohl, and I'm definitely paraphrasing, but he was kind of talking about, some of the problems he has with music nowadays is that, people don't spend 5 years being awful in their high school garage band before they step up to a national stage.
Yeah.
And that, like, being okay with being unpolished but still being in front of people, at a smaller level, is so different than, like, I know you have had experience with The Voice, and I feel like there's categories of people on shows like that. There's people who are like career musicians, who, put in their 10,000 hours and arrive there. And then there's people who are really green. And it's not to say that what they're doing is any less valuable.
Right.
But I think there is a lot to be gained from, just doing it and being okay with sucking.
Yeah. Yeah. Showing up for yourself, for sure. It's just the only way I learned just who the hell I am. And I'm sure that you get that too. It's like, you have your own voice as a writer, and it's just been such an honor to work with you. And I hope you and I can do our own co-write here soon. That would be amazing. And I wanted to, for every episode, I just to end it out, I create a curated playlist of your entire music, kind of discography on Spotify for people to just kind of like sift through who is Olivia Rudeen. Do you have something like that you've already created, or can I create one just from pulling from Spotify? Or
I think I have one. Maybe we can like pare it down a little bit, pick some highlights or something.
It's whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, just send me that link to that playlist and I can, put it in the podcast episode. So
awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I think our listeners are going to learn a lot from you just from this short conversation. So I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Of course. I appreciate you asking and inviting me to be on here. And I'm looking forward to everything we do in the future.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, that's a wrap, y'all. To see our full conversation, you can go to youtube.com/Grace Askew. You can also go to the Grace Askew Spotify page to enjoy a fully curated playlist for each week's episode. And y'all, don't be scared to slide on into my DMs on Instagram with any questions, comments, or insights you'd like to share. Thanks for listening to Daring to Suck. I'll see y'all next Monday for another fresh episode.